Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Community. Okay, so I'm thrilled because I have one of my colleagues, Ben, here, who I get to work with every single day, who is a little genius. He's a little maven. Maria and I love working with him. And even though he does not have the same, I would say, joy and enthusiasm that I have for the everyday, he keeps us grounded, and we're excited to chat today about podcasting. So hi, Ben.
Hey.
Ben's podcast about LinkedIn was the most downloaded episode really we've ever had. And I told him that if we're 2 for 2 on this one, he has to become my permanent co-host. So that might happen.
Yeah. How's my personal brand doing? I feel like it's like just this like random guy who's like just known for being like not enthusiastic and stoic. And anyways.
We could make you an Instagram. It could be called Stoic Ben.
No, I'd want to have some revisions on that.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll keep working on that. Maybe we'll do it. I think maybe our next episode together can be a live audit. We could do a live audit.
LinkedIn? No Instagram.
No Instagram. No,
not right now.
You have a hobby Instagram, but I'll leave that one alone. But today,
we've already mentioned it.
Today, what we're going to talk about is podcasting. And Ben works so well with our team to kind of launch our podcast. As Ben's worked with us for the last year and a bit, and podcasting has been probably one of the greatest areas of our business that has grown. So many people have been interested in podcasting and have been. We've launched over I would think close to 40 podcasts with our team. We have a bunch.
I was thinking that I don't actually know why we don't know that number. I was thinking about that yesterday, and I was like, because we were saying 30 for way too long, so I think now I'm starting to say 40, but we should probably just figure that out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm going to leave that with you, Ben. Ben's going to get me the number. But we've launched probably over 40 podcasts, perhaps more, and we have, I think in a lot of ways, really finessed what a podcast launch looks like and how a lot of our clients can get return on investment on their podcast. And so what we want to talk about today was, how do people get return on investment on a podcast? Because it is a bit of a longer game than other things. And so I even tell people before they launch, I'm 6 months minimum before you're probably going to monetize this. You really want to be building community. You want to be doing that. And so why don't we get into it? Why don't we get into maybe how do people best see return on investment on their podcast?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to why are you starting in the first place? And I think if you come to us and say I actually just want to make money off my podcast, that's fine. We're super open to working with you, and we see people make some money off their podcast, and obviously we know that podcasting can be extremely profitable. It could even be your full-time job. That is within the realm of possibilities in this day and age, which is exciting. But I just kind of think that the podcasts that we see being the most successful, the ones that show up the most consistently, the ones that we have the most longevity, specifically with us, but also that we see in our network of entrepreneurship friends and people that we even follow just on our own, is people typically have a mission that they're trying to get that kind of goes a little beyond revenue
or fame.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. And I think I would never, you almost shouldn't do anything with the idea of trying to become famous or anything like that. Even go on Love is Blind, guys. Don't go on Love is Blind for fame. I know people are trying it. It's not good. But even just thinking about some podcasts that we have a podcast launching today, the person has a really great audience and a really great connections. So I imagine his podcast might monetize a bit faster than someone who maybe is kind of newer in the online space or whatever. But even when we brought up monetization with him, that wasn't the goal, right? It was really about the conversations and about being able to build connections. And I think that has to be a piece of it, is you have to actually love the craft of having these conversations, finding your unique spin on the conversations, and being able to bring your audience kind of along for it.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of where value or ROI starts on the podcast, is in the conversations. So it's not necessarily in the dollar in, dollar out kind of thing. It's it's actually in the value just in meeting with people, and that's kind of comes in a couple of different ways. The first way is you're having conversations with people who you probably wouldn't get to have conversations with otherwise. Yeah. We see all the time people doing these reaching asks on podcasts, and you'd be surprised. I know that you've experienced this early on, and still some really awesome surprises even now. But that you've seen where you have reaching asks for people to be on your podcast, to go on other podcasts, and those things that seem kind of out of reach maybe in like a different business context aren't as out of reach on a podcast. Because even think about like how having a one-on-one coaching session with Kristina is like not something that there's a ton of space for in the calendar, and it comes at a price because the reality is there are a lot of people who are interested in having your time because of the experience that you have, but like you actually get to have some of those conversations in a podcasting context because it's not a one-on-one, but it actually is a one-on-one, but also one-to-many context, and there's value in that alone, right?
Yeah, big time. And even like like to add to that, like one of the pieces for me was I remember my podcast was like not even a year old, and I had gone to just a few events of Chris's, but didn't have like Chris Harder, didn't have like too much of a relationship with him at that point. And I went to him, and I was supposed to go on this trip to Arizona. What we were going for got canceled, but we had flights. So I messaged him, and I was like, any chance, like I'll rent the studio, like would you come talk to me for an hour? And he was like, yeah, for sure. And that actually opened up like a ton of conversation between us and like relationship. And then that ended up with me and the Elite Mastermind and many, many things from there. And I'd consider him a friend. But that wouldn't have happened without that ask. But do I think he would have had coffee with me? Maybe. Like, I'm not saying no. He's very generous with his time. But at the same time, that platform actually gives people a little bit more expansion where it's like, oh, like, you know, you're actually not just meeting with me, you're actually meeting with my whole audience. Like, and you're going to get this opportunity to be in front of all these new people. People love that. And even I've had people reach out to me with way bigger audiences than me because they've got an event coming up or a launch or something a book launch or something that they want to celebrate. And it's actually of my benefit to have them on. Like, great opportunity, great audience. I know they'll promote it, but it's in that conversation where I probably wouldn't have had access to them if I didn't have a platform in return. So I often tell people like a hack, if you're like, I really want to be on more podcasts, like I want to be on more high level podcasts, have a podcast. And that's usually how you're able to generate a bit more of those great quality guests because you have a space in return.
I guess like a question maybe I'll keep coming back to you with, and that is like that episode with Chris Harder, like how many dollars did that specific episode make? Because it was early in your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't able to tell you.
It's $0 in the episode.
Yeah.
But like the
thousands,
the monetary value of the conversation again.
Totally. Yeah. And that actually led to me, which is funny, like, you know, when you think about dollars, right? That led to me being, you know, doing the Elite Mastermind, becoming friends with Chris and Lori, blah, blah, blah. I went to their lake house. And Chris actually, while we were at the lake house, was like, you want to record a podcast episode together? And I nearly passed away. And then as I recovered, I was like, sure, like, let's do it. So we have these like mini mics. We're like sitting like on a couch, like talking. And that episode actually like led me to multiple people who bought our retreat. Like from California, like who came, like, you know, from the States. I've had many people join the Social Business Club. Many people reach out, like, you know, people reach out to me who were like kind of in my periphery on social, were interested in working with us. And then they were like, oh, Chris trusts her, I'm in, right? Like just even that authority that can come from that. But that came from, you know, me inviting them on my podcast first and not asking for anything in return. I never was like, you want to do a swap? Like, let's do a swap. It was like, I was like, yeah, I'd love to have you on. I see the value you provide. Let's see what's possible. But yeah, it's totally like that has definitely paid itself in spades over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And I think like we often say, we said this on other episodes, even recently, and you and Marie were talking about this, but like people shouldn't come to us like with like their last dollar, right? Because that investment where it's like you actually like booked a studio, made an investment in that conversation in order to like make space to have Chris and have that. And like if you weren't comfortable kind of making that investment in the beginning of having a podcast, like we would never be able to see like the fruits of like what's come from that. But like it's really impactful when you're able again to create a space to have these really powerful conversations. Another aspect of the value of the conversation is even in like, so that's kind of like in almost like the guesting kind of situation, getting on other people's podcasts, getting to talk to people who you may not get to talk to in different other contexts. But there's also a lot of value in podcasting even by yourself or with people from your team too, because it builds thought leadership. And actually, I was going to even like, we talked about this before, but I was like, even going to go a little bit further where I kind of think that podcasting is kind of an opportunity to sort of like fake it till you make it a little bit. I think that like there is obviously a level of, you know, kind of official vibe that kind of comes with the podcast. Even just like us like sitting in these chairs having, you know, like some cameras recording and putting this out, obviously on Spotify and Apple. Like it's awesome. It looks kind of official, a little bit more official than like it actually feels when it's just like the two of us talking. Because like really, what this is like this is just a conversation.
Totally.
But it kind of gives you, an official vibe to have. Authentic conversations that really give you the authority and kind of the official look in order to kind of get to that next level.
Totally, I totally agree. Yeah. Launchpad. Yeah. What was the thing you came up with for us?
Turning limits into launch pads.
You'll see that. It's probably like if you came to iVibe Women, you saw a banner that said that. We were racking our brains on what it would be, and Ben just turned around and was like, "What about this?" And we were like, "There it is, Ben. There it is." Little marketing genius. Yeah. But you know what? I totally agree. I think that authority piece is so huge, and that is what I think kind of got started with like video, where these podcast videos have been kind of great. It is like us renting a studio. There's a monetary value here, obviously, and it does add a level of credibility that even if it's not true. I've seen people say crazy shit, like crazy stuff. And I'm like, oh, they're just in a studio or they have a good lighting setup and that made them look way smarter than they actually are, which hopefully isn't the case here. But right. But I think also you kind of highlighted this at the beginning, this idea of like having conversations with team members or solo episodes. Like that is something that I think people really undervalue. Like the solo episodes. A coach that I worked with, Adam from Podcasting Business School, I always recommend him. Anytime anyone's like, how do I grow a podcast? I'm like, listen to this man. He's amazing. I think he said it's like 2/3 of your podcast should be solo episodes, which is like not where I'm at. I wish, like it's just I like emotionally cannot. But why is because people are building authority, right? Like you're building the authority, and I think something that people miss when they're interviewing people is they'll make the podcast really about their guest, but your podcast is still your opportunity for you to show your expertise. Like people are listening for you, and so even Ben, we were laughing before this because I made that joke about you becoming my co-host, and you're like, my mom can only download this LinkedIn episode so many times. I don't think your mom. Also, hi Ben's mom if you're listening. But I don't actually think it's your mom that brought it to that level. But if it is, that's quite impressive, and she has some bot skills. But but why I think people like that episode is because we actually went into the details of what we were doing on the inside, and it was like, hey, here's actually how we grew this LinkedIn. Like it wasn't some of our episodes, and like I'll be honest, they're fluffy because they have to be. Because I'm not gonna be like, hi guys, this is this Instagram feature. I'm gonna pull this up on my phone that you can't see, and then click this. Like it's not like that. But that LinkedIn episode, we were able to be like, here's automations we've used. Here's automations we've hated. Here's things we've liked. Here's things we haven't liked. Here's how we got top voice. Like, we were able to share some really good insights. And I think people are looking for that. So to just give you some credit. But I just also think it's just really important for us to know that like people actually want that behind the scenes. They want that authority of like what you're doing to actually see success, and not just like mindset stuff, but also like what are those tangible things that people can walk away with. And something that I think people make mistakes on, in my opinion, on social and podcasting is they're afraid to give too much of that information because they're scared people won't work with them. So they're scared, like, if Ben and I have this great conversation about podcasting, you guys are going to leave and you're going to be like, I don't need help launching my podcast. Like, they made that so easy. I'm going to do it myself. That's not the case. People will not do it themselves, in my experience.
Yeah, and I mean, a hard truth is that in like a 20 or 30-minute podcast episode, if you can give somebody all the value that you offer in your agency, like, then you don't have a good offer.
Yeah.
So I think for us, like, there's some things that we do that other people can do on their own, and like we've seen it. But I think like the amount of time that we free people up, the expertise that we've gotten through our experience, it's like you can't replicate that from just listening to a podcast. I think we're pretty open to like empowering you to do that if you want. But like the reality is we know that when push comes to shove, like we actually do have a service that people really find beneficial, and like you can't get that from a podcast. And if someone can get that from a podcast, then I think you should really consider about like what value am I even offering in general.
Totally.
I think that also going back to the ROI piece, like I think that we also need to reframe the way that we think about like sales and about these investments that we make in kind of getting visible online, because like I know that there are people out there that are, they're paying someone to get them leads or to get them connection calls, or they're spending money on paid ads to get connection calls or something. You can put out a podcast episode for free. You can pay for the production of it, and we would love to work with you. But like the you can actually put out with, there are some distribution tools that are really helpful to come at a price, but it's really not a significant cost, if any cost, to put out a podcast episode. And that is basically 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes of someone listening to you uninterrupted for free, basically, or for pseudo almost free. And like, think about how much like people are dying to get in front of people, like, and you know, get in their ear, really build authority, offer them value, so then there's the opportunity to work with them or to trust them, or just even to like know and like them, right?
Yeah.
And like that opportunity is out there for everyone, and that's why I think we actually do really believe in podcasting, not because we think that our clients are all getting rich off it. Like, they're a lot of them aren't. Like, truly, some of them are doing really well because of podcasting, but also because of a lot of other things they're doing. But we think that this is a really helpful additional piece to like get in front of people. Like when someone asks us a question, like we link them to podcasts. When someone doesn't like, when we can't get on a call with somebody, we can like link them a podcast. We get in front of people all the time that actually come to us not as cold leads, but as warm leads because they've listened to our podcast.
Totally.
This actually is something that like can work for you too. So it's not even to like just like, oh, this is like my paid, this is like my advertising that's actually going to pay me. Like it can be that, but it also can be an investment that you're viewing it as like, this is my marketing. And like this actually is how I want to get leads. And like that is a real reality of what this can do for you too. And that builds a lot of thought leadership and authority for you. Yeah.
Totally. I totally agree. And yeah, if you look at it as more of a marketing tool, like I think it can be really helpful. You know, we've been talking about this a lot at the Social Snippet too. Like, how does this actually funnel more content? Like, how do people use all of that content kind of for good? Yeah. There's like so much that people can do with it, like to get ROI. That it's not just you putting out a podcast and you never think about it again. There has to be a level of promotion that comes with it for more people to download it. And there's we have some good episodes on that. But I would say really that success comes from that consistency of like just showing up, continuing to post about it. And you're totally right. Like, I can't tell you how many discovery calls I've had where people have come on and they have listened to like every single podcast interview. And they're like, just like, hey, you were talking about this and I heard this on your podcast and I love this and I love that. Yeah. And I love that. Like, it's so cool to see. But people are doing their research. And there's more, like, really, there's just so much that people can choose from now. That there's so many people who are doing community building work, so many people who are doing social, so many people who are doing podcasting, and people can find different people to work with. And it's really about finding those people that resonate.
Yeah, totally. So we kind of talked about like how like guest episodes can kind of get you in front of like, you know, next level people or just new communities and how that adds a lot of value. Even solo episodes kind of can differently add value for your marketing plan, for your lead generation, for your kind of thought leadership and authority. And then you kind of were just starting to touch on another point that I wanted to bring up, which is like, this is a really efficient way to get content. And we all know content costs money. It costs you either a lot of time or a good amount of money, because the reality is good content takes time. But like with the podcast, you can be banking your content. So you actually have to show up not like less, but less times.
Yeah.
And you get to show up in a really intimate and like engaging way, because we know that like real like conversations, authentic conversations are hitting right now. We know that kind of like talking head, getting in front of a mic and just like openly spilling out your guts, like telling people like what's up, what's good, what's not good. And we know that videos are doing really well. And podcasting is all of those things. And you can bank it on a one content day, kind of like what we do on our team. Like basically every month we do this and we get tons of our content for the whole month. And we're doing this mostly through filming podcasts. And this is a really effective way for you to basically get, I think on average, a lot of like people who do social and podcasting with us get about 50% of their content from podcasts.
Totally.
Which is like, that's super significant. It takes the load off of your social media manager, whether that's you or somebody else. It saves them a ton of time and probably and therefore money, and it also can increase the quality of your content. So that's another way where you can see ROI just by doing a podcast. And technically you could do that and not even post the podcast out there. I would recommend not doing that because you already filmed it. But it's like in it of itself, the content is actually super valuable and worthwhile for you.
Yeah. And the cool thing about podcasting too, like I love your perspective on this. And obviously we've seen so many different podcasters kind of go through, and like even another piece that people don't really realize is that podcasting kind of lives forever. right?
Yeah.
You post it on there, it's out there. It's not like social. Where social, you've got like a 48-hour bandwidth. Like every once in a while, something will hit and I'll like get a few comments from something from the past. I'm like, oh, you were lurking. Like, hello. And then usually you see it, like they're lurking and then they join our email list and they fill out an inquiry form. So I'm like always kind of mindful of that. But on the podcasting side, like even this morning, I was going to tell you this. We did a podcast episode, like it was one of our first podcast episodes Maria and I did together, and it was called So What Platform Should You Be On?
Yeah.
Every day this week, there's been downloads of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did someone promote this somewhere? Like, am I missing? Did someone like, I was like, we should probably like update it because I don't even know if all those platforms still exist. Like, we should probably like, that's actually probably what we should do again. But I was like, wow, like that still hits. Like, people are actually still wondering like what platform they should be on. They're not sure. And so that's interesting. And so I think you're making content that lives for a long time. And even I met somebody who guested on Lori Harder's podcast a few years ago. I think that she said 5. And her and I were sitting together, and she was like, you know what's so funny is people still DM me about that offer. And she's like, that offer doesn't exist. I don't even do that anymore. And people will message me listening to that episode from 5 years ago.
Where is this?
Yeah, they're like, hi, sorry, I tried to use that discount code. She's like, I don't even do that anymore. So it's just interesting that like that stuff lives for a long time. So you can actually use it really to get more ROI, get more bang for your buck, more juice for your squeeze if you are interested in making content.
Yeah, totally. Love that.
Yay.
So yeah, again, recapping, we talk about guest episodes, solo episodes, the content aspect. So like, if you have a podcast and you're doing those things and you're still like, man, like how do I get more ROI on this? Another thing that like you can kind of explore is, and we actually kind of love this at the Social Snippet, is affiliate marketing. Your community is yours. You've built it, you've poured into them, you've invested in them, and they're actually, if you're continuing to like show up well and provide value for them, they're actually willing to invest in you back. Yeah. If you're hosting a podcast and you use a tool, or you you have an offering, or there's some kind of service out there, or you know, like maybe your podcast is about fashion and whatever you wear, you link, like you can be selling stuff to your audience as long as, in our opinion, as long as it's actually aligned to what your community's about. Like, we're always trying to push people to, if you're listening to this, to join our Social Business Club, because we think that it has a lot of value for people. We have some other great affiliate partnerships with like Flowdesk and Later, and like tools that we actually use and we love, and that's like one of the ways that we can actually get a little bit of money back on this. We would do this if we didn't make any money, but like the reality is we can make some money, so why not? And I would encourage you to think about, like, if you had a podcast, or if you already have a podcast, like what are you using for your podcast that you get affiliate money from? What could you be promoting that you just love and you think that your community would love that you get affiliate money on? Like, you're probably using a mic. That could be a link. Yeah. Like, there's probably, you know, an event coming up that you get kickbacks on. Like, there's so much possibility here that we think about, like, oh, like, the only way I can get ROI on a podcast is if, you know, like, my YouTube channel has a bajillion, like, subscribers, or if I get some crazy title sponsor who's willing to, you know, like, pay me to podcast. Like, I wish that for you. And that opportunity, those opportunities are out there. Yeah. But there's money to be made now too, and I think that when we kind of open our eyes to like what are the different opportunities around, like there's actually probably more ways to make money, and affiliate marketing is one of those ways. Yeah, I know, I love that. Such a good point, because I think there's 2 ways, right? Like, and you brought it up. One, kind of the way we do it at the Social Business Club, where we talk about our own products, and that's where you can sell your own things. Don't be afraid to make ads for things like that you don't even have partnerships with. Like, they don't care. Flowdesk does not care if you make an ad talking about how much you love email marketing and using their code. I'm positive they're pumped about it, right? We do have a more formal partnership with Flowdesk, but like there's lots of different things that you can do that actually really do move the needle for affiliate marketing. We found it interesting too, because even sometimes we'll talk about things, because you mentioned you were like, it has to be kind of aligned for your audience. I think on podcasting in particular, it's a bit different than social, because I think on podcasting, I almost think, and this might be a hot take, it's probably not a great way to wrap this up, I actually think niched podcasts do better than general podcasts. This is my thought. Where it's like, when you are very clear on who you're talking to, and you're not like, I'm talking to like all different types of people. But when you're like, I'm talking to moms. Yeah. I'm talking to business owners that are realtors. I'm talking to like these types of people. I think those are technically, in my opinion, more successful, especially if you don't have a big audience. So when you can tailor your affiliate marketing right to those people, it's
Win-win. Like, it's so good. But then on social media, I found like sometimes I'll post things that are, especially I'm entering this like new era of life, I'll post like mom-related things and I'll be like, oh, I bought this. Like, what do you guys think? And so many women, and I think it's probably because of high vibe women and, you know, that's kind of my community. Like, so many women are like, oh my God, like, yes, I love that. Or I think that's great or whatever. So I've been able to pivot a bit more on social than I have on the podcast. But I think podcasting, if you can get hyper clear on who your listener is and be able to align those offers, affiliate or otherwise to that, that's where I think there's a lot of magic.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's just a bit confusing for people sometimes because they see someone kind of like Joe Rogan or something like that. And they're kind of like, oh, that doesn't seem like all that specific. Like they just kind of like, some of these podcasters, they just kind of talk.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, like I think that like if you have like that level of fame, that level of name brand, I think that you can basically get away with anything. But I think that like where the disconnect comes is like, that's actually not how they got there. You know what I mean?
100%.
It's like, that's where they're at now. And like, it's fun and it's awesome. I mean, it's not a podcast that I particularly listen to, but clearly a lot of people do because it's so highly rated.
Yeah.
But that's like, yeah, that's not how they got to where they are. And I think how you get to that level is only through, like you said, being really clear on like, who do I best serve? And from there, you can kind of slowly open your wings. But if you're starting a podcast from scratch, I think being like the most specific you could possibly be, even if you think it's too specific, I think that you'll probably find that it's not. So.
This will be my last point, but just something, and maybe we should do a whole other podcast on this. So Ben, I'll ramp you up on this for the future. But this idea of like you kind of earn breath like over time, like with time. Like it's like you can't start off being like, hello, I can help everyone. You earn that right, or you earn that right to speak to like more audience as time goes on. Yeah. So even Maria and I, we haven't earned breath. Like even like every time somebody asks me if I know a podcast editor, I want to cry. Like I literally want to weep. But it's because we don't talk about podcasting nearly as much as we talk about social. That's changing. But what's interesting is that we haven't earned that yet where we can kind of talk about anything and it'd be great. Yeah. That being said, so that's why I think niching is so important early on because you earn that over time. Like over time, people start to trust you and they start to trust you more and more and more about different things. We've seen that with Lori's pivot, right? Like you start in fitness and then you go into personal development and now you're in the entrepreneurship space. She's built multiple 7-figure companies. She's earned the breath, right? So yeah, I think over time people earn it. Podcasting, your first podcast off the gate where maybe you don't have a big audience, I don't think that's where it's earned.
Yeah, and that even goes down to like the topics that you're talking about too. It's like you have to speak from an area that you like are like really really solid on, and I think that like. Your list of topics, I think, like kind of has expanded a little bit, but again, you're like you'll never probably talk about what you do enough, and so I think to kind of be like, oh, like I did one episode on that, now everyone just knows because it's out there that everyone just knows that I do that or that I know about that. It's like people don't listen to everything that you put out, and this is an evergreen kind of like marketing thing, which is so awesome because people will find that episode, but like not everyone will find that episode, and you need to be constantly earning that breath, talking about what you do, reinforcing what you want to be known for, and that takes a long time. But there is lots of ROI there. So yeah.
Any last ROI podcast points?
I just think that like again, this like it all comes down to like fake it till you make it on this stuff. Like that's kind of like I think like my big advice for someone starting out a podcast is like you can earn breath by like just starting though. Like there's you'll never get to the point where like you're known for like what you do unless you do start. And I think that like again just like giving yourself some window to get really clear on like what you want to be known for is really important. But then after that, I think that you just kind of have to start like you have to press record and then just keep an open mind to like the investment that you're gonna make in podcasting and the opportunities that can come from it. I think that when we kind of like reflect on like this podcast or the podcasts of the clients that we've launched, like they've been gifted so many amazing opportunities that like sometimes we forget when we're like so like inside of it. And I think the more that we take advantage of those opportunities, the more ROI there is from podcasting, even when it doesn't show up in like your bank account the day that you release the episode. It doesn't mean that it can't be a Chris Harder conversation where you actually lost money the day of, but years later we're still reaping the benefits from it. And I think that's kind of is ROI on podcasting is it's not immediate. It's not flashy all the time. It can be, but more likely it's going to be an investment that you make in like the long-term success of your business, your personal brand. And we think that, your business will thank you for it. So, yeah.
Well said, Ben. Ben, I want to thank you for being on the podcast again. I just have to tell all of you, hashtag Stoic Ben, he filled in for Maria because Maria is down bad with food poisoning. And Ben, I gave Ben 10 minutes to prepare for this, and you killed it.
Yep. Hashtag Stoic Ben. Comment Stoic Ben if you if you would like to never see me on a podcast again.
That's going to be the ManyChat prompt. If you see the clip of Ben talking, it's going to be hashtag Stoic Ben, and you'll get the episode sent right to your inbox.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just go with Stoic or something. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned.
Ben, thanks so much. I know you do so much work with podcasting, and I'm definitely like more behind the mic. I don't again, this is part of our business I don't know how to do too much with. And I'm just grateful for your leadership there and your insight. And can't wait to see what the next 6 months brings of all the fun podcasts.
Yeah. To 40 more podcasts. Let's go.
Let's go.